It's the Turbo and 2K show.
What's up, 2K crew? It is that time of the week again, and look right there. Look right there. He's back. He's back. He's back. He's back. 2Ks, how's it been going, brother?
It's been great.
I'm actually glad that the erection you had probably Saturday to Monday subsided. I'm saying it subsided just enough so you could walk through the door.
Yeah. I'm about half chub now.
So
I'm getting back to getting around. But still in a good place.
I was really worried about that, but I was like, well, you know what? If he's able to get in his truck, then I have a feeling it'll fit through the door. And man, rightfully so. Rightfully so. And let's not, speaking of chubs, blow our load too quick, because that's what we're going to be talking about today, ladies and gentlemen. It is a strictly Big 10 football show tonight. We're going to break down, obviously, the game Saturday, because that was huge. We're going to look at the Big 10 title game, and then we're going to look at the future of the Big 10. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's get locked in. And for those of you, the few that are watching live, welcome. How we doing? Go ahead and drop a comment. And if you are not subscribed, hit that subscribe button and the bell so you get notified every time we go live. And if you do comment, I'll throw your comment up here on the screen. We'll get you into the conversation, answer any questions that we can. And for those of you that are feeling a little bit saucy, go to buyturboabeer.com, buy 2Ks and I a beer, and you will be financially supporting the show as well. So 2Ks, let's jump right into it, brother. So Michigan, I believe, was, I think at the closing line, an 8-point dog going into this? And they were not a dog at all.
No.
I mean, especially in that second half. First half was kind of going back and forth. Kind of like kind of like a heavyweight bout, if you will. Just kind of body blows here and there, and then out of halftime. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what the hell Harbaugh did, but he hit on all cylinders.
I mean, it's kind of been the story of Michigan all season long. The first half of games, they don't look very sharp. They haven't looked very good in the first. And then they come out in the second half, and they just blow the doors off. I mean, you look at their three biggest games of the year, Penn State, Michigan State, and Ohio State. Those are their three biggest opponents. And to give up 6 points in the second half to those three teams combined, I mean, they gave up 3 points to Ohio State in the second half of that game. I mean, that's the story of their season, is coming back as a completely different team in the second half, making adjustments. And, for a lot of us Michigan fans that were completely against Harbaugh a few years back, that's coaching. That's coaching to me. I mean, you can give credit to the players, and they do deserve a lot of that. But to go in and make adjustments at halftime the way that they did in their three biggest games this season, that's coaching.
I could not agree more. And I think for I'm just going to throw it out there, the whole college football landscape, I mean, that was a shock. Mm-hmm. And I'm not taking anything away from Harbaugh and the team. It's just, I think we were all, granted, like last year, it was a shock too, but it was at home.
Yeah, and the weather played a factor last year, with the snow and the winds. I mean, that played a factor. That Ohio State having 3 NFL wide receivers and a quarterback that can throw it all over the place, and then Michigan having the pass rush that they had last year, the weather played a huge factor. This year, the weather's perfect. You're on the road. I mean, everything is stacked against Michigan in that. You have Ohio State with, at the time, probably the leader in the Heisman race. You have Blake Corum coming off an injury. You really didn't know what to expect with him. I kind of expected kind of the same thing of what happened. He was going to give it a go because, that's the type of guy that he is. And then you find out today that he's having surgery and going to be done for the year. So he was hurt bad, but it was the biggest game of the season. You go to Michigan to play that game. Mm-hmm. I mean, at the period, the end of story, and he did it. He gave it a shot, and he just couldn't do it physically. And so you had everything stacked against you in that game, and Ohio State came out in the first quarter, and it was like it was a revenge game, and it looked good for Michigan. I mean, 7-8 minutes into that game, it was like, this is all going Ohio State's way. And this might be bad for Michigan. And Ohio State, they look fast. They look mad. I mean, they were playing. And it looked bad. And then Michigan just they made big plays that kind of kept the crowd out of it. And then in the second half, we got back to the normal way that they play all season long, and that's just run the ball, run it down your throat. And the way that Michigan runs the ball, that's why I think they're so successful in the second half, is because they just tire you out. You get tired of tackling, you get tired of shedding off of those blocks, and they tire you out in the second half. And that's what happened.
And also this is our first tweet of the night. It is actually, it's not a tweet, it's just a meme. It's Jim Harbaugh in the corner, says, just checking in to see who Ohio State's playing this weekend. So for the Michigan or the Ohio State faithful that listens, got to give you a little shot. Got to give you a little shot.
And one thing I will say to that is I'm very hard pressed to say that Ohio State's not a top 4 team in the nation. No.
Yeah.
And if something happens, if TCU slips up in this game, or say USC slips up in this game, I think Ohio State's the next team in. I think they slide in if something happens in the championship games. Now, if Michigan loses to Purdue, if it's close, I see Michigan probably staying in just because of the win that they have over Ohio State on the road. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that they can fall out of there. The same with Georgia. I don't think they could lose in this and fall out. They would probably fall to number 4. But if USC loses or TCU loses, they're out and Ohio State's in.
Yeah, I've got the top 5 up here. Obviously, Georgia number 1, Michigan number 2, USC number 4, going out of order, TCU number 3, Ohio State number 5, and Alabama number 6. And I think you're right. I mean, the only one, I'm pretty sure Georgia and Michigan, doesn't really matter what happens this weekend.
I've thought about this all week long, and we kind of saw it last year. The committee's very SEC biased.
Oh, of course.
And you cannot tell me that the committee is not afraid of that Georgia-USC matchup. And if something happens to where Georgia and LSU is a close game, and Michigan say they go out and blow the doors off of Purdue like they did Iowa last year, it would not shock me if the committee jumps Michigan. So Michigan has to play that USC game in the first round, and then Georgia can get their TCU matchup. Ooh, they match up a lot better with TCU. And I think Georgia's the best team in the country, and I think that they probably are, they go on and win their second one in a row. If I was a betting man, that's where I would put my money. Mm-hmm. But that Georgia, I'm scared of USC because of the offensive firepower, because of Caleb Williams, who's going to win the Heisman now. Oof. I'm scared of that matchup. Now, can USC stop Georgia? No. They can't stop anybody.
No,
but they can put up points, and that's what you're going to need to put up points to beat Georgia, and they can do that. This isn't the same Georgia defense from last year, where they have 7-8 guys that are going to be playing on Sundays. They don't have that right now.
No, I 100% agree. And kind of to get back to this here, I mean, obviously USC loses, that's 2 losses to the same opponent. If TCU loses, that's their first loss. But it would be to a lesser opponent than Ohio State losing to Michigan. So is Ohio State still alive for this? I 125% agree. Alabama with 2 losses, I think there's not a chance they get in, even with the SEC bias, even with them gargling Nick Saban, and which he's won so many for so many years. But this isn't that same team. I can't remember a time when there was a 2-loss Alabama team. It's been a long, long time, and But to kind of get to that point, I mean, I put this in the 2K Crew group, and I'm not sure what the line is currently because I posted this yesterday. Michigan's 16.5-point favorite. This sounds like easy money. Who's with me? And there are a couple folks that jumped on that, and we've seen Michigan be extremely heavy favorites this year. I mean, to the point it was like 52 against Hawaii, and they covered. And then we've seen them be, in the high teens to the 20s, and just barely not cover. And there were, I'm almost positive when I was checking that line out, Purdue's not even sure they're going to have their quarterback.
Yeah.
Did I see that right?
Yeah.
So, as betting men that we are, and I'm not trying to jinx anything, but I would hammer that line.
Oh, I would too. I mean, and there's so much pressure on Michigan, in my opinion, to play so well, and because of the divisions of the Big Ten. I mean, and how lopsided the two divisions are, and how you have teams with 4 losses battling it out to get into the conference championship.
No one wanted to win that side.
Yeah, and now we're watching Michigan play against an opponent that didn't even want to win that side. I mean, it's 4 losses and they're getting in, and unfortunately, a team like Ohio State or Penn State that have 2 losses, Penn State 2 losses and Ohio State 1 loss, they don't get to play in it, and it's I mean, that's a story for a different day, and an argument for another day. But something's got to happen there with the Big Ten to where we make this, because it's such a, you go from the Michigan-Ohio State game, which it's the biggest rivalry in college football.
Absolutely,
it's the biggest game. I mean, you go to Michigan to beat Ohio State, you go to Ohio State to beat Michigan. Period. And I would even go as far to make that argument to say that that's a bigger game than what happens on New Year's Day when the playoff starts. And then you go from the highest to highs to this game, and it's like,
to saying it could be a letdown game.
I mean, I kind of thought that last year, that it was going to be a letdown game, and then Michigan wins 42-3. I think Michigan's way too focused. They're way too, the coaching is so good. I don't see that happening. They don't really get caught out of the moment. You look back at two games this year where they kind of looked off. And I look at the Indiana game where Mike Hart, the running backs coach, collapses on the sideline. And Michigan it took them a while to get going. And once they did, it was late in the second half, they got going and they ended up winning that game easy. And then you look at the Illinois game, you watch Corum go down, who has carried that team all season long, and then he limps off the sideline with a knee injury and doesn't come back in the second half. And there was a little bit of a letdown game in that. Michigan, they struggled to find their identity. They didn't have Edwards playing in that game.
True. So
they're on to their 3rd and 4th string running backs, who's a freshman and a walk-on. So that game they struggled a little bit in, and then get Edwards back. Corum, the loss of Corum hurts them, but getting Edwards back, Edwards is another NFL caliber running back. That there's not really much of a fall off there. Corum's really good, but if Edwards got the volume that Corum had all season long, I think Edwards' numbers would be pretty similar.
And Edwards is a better receiver out of the backfield.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which even opens things further.
He's catching the ball in the Ohio State game he looked like Mickey Mouse's glove he had on.
Yeah, I mean he looked absolutely amazing, and he was even dinged up kind of leading up to that game.
Yeah. Well, he's got the broken bone in his hand, so he's basically running the ball with one hand, which as a running back, and we're talking about the highest of highs in college football, Big Ten, SEC, any one of those conferences. Like, those guys aren't just tackling you; they're punching it for the ball. And he's there with one hand and really has nothing with his other hand, taking handoffs with basically one hand. Like, what he did in the biggest game of the year and the biggest game maybe of his college career, and to put up that and have those big plays in the second half. Yeah. And
then on the other side, you had the middle linebacker for Ohio State playing with 2 broken thumbs.
Yeah, what a tough son of a bitch. I mean, what a tough son of a bitch.
Pat McAfee is 100% right that Ohio people are different. And
well, look at his co-host there, and AJ Hawk. He is an ugly mug. He's a different character, but that dude was tough as shit.
Oh yeah, and like Pat says, Ohio folks are different, and that's you can't really argue with that. But what was your biggest takeaway from the game?
Just how dominant Michigan was, and it was almost like, they said last year that, like I said earlier, the weather played a huge factor in it, and we're on the road in Ann Arbor, and all those excuses, and I kind of agreed with that. And then going into this year, it was like, well, we're back at home. The weather's going to be nice. Our passing attack, you're not going to be able to stop us. Michigan's DBs give up too many big plays. Michigan's not going to be able to run the football on them, and on and on and on. And then to come out, and this game was more dominant than last year's.
Yeah,
I mean, they gave up 3 points to them, the number one offense in college football, and they gave up 3 points to them in the second half on their home field. Like, just how, and not only doing it running the football, I mean, they got to doing that in the second half, but if it wasn't for J.J. McCarthy making plays with his arm in the first half, and receivers doing what they hadn't been doing all year in the first half, and that's gaining separation and making big plays, they wouldn't have even been there to be able to do that in the second half, just still be running the football. So They dominated that game in every facet of it. And one thing that I love to see is over the years, don't get me wrong, Michigan has struggled in this rivalry, and I'm guilty of saying a couple years ago that this game was almost to the point where it wasn't even a rivalry anymore. Because Michigan couldn't compete, and I said that.
Mm-hmm.
And to see now those stupid penalties in big games like that, where you're headbutting guys, and they're frustration penalties.
Yeah.
And that's what Michigan was guilty of for 10 years. Those frustration penalties because they were tired of getting their ass kicked by that team. And now the tables are turning, and I think that Ohio State's got some pressure on them because Michigan's starting to figure some shit out. And I'm still not saying that Michigan's here and Ohio State's here now. I'm saying that Ohio State's still here, but Michigan's getting up to this point where they're starting to level things out. And I think that Ohio State feels the pressure, and that's where you see those stupid penalties in the second half of that game. They knew they were getting their ass kicked. They were exhausted from just getting ran on, and the stupid penalties show up, and that tells me that we're in their fucking head.
Oh yeah, and you're in their head, in their house. No, and I'm glad you brought up McCarthy because he was kind of the question mark going into this. I mean, aside from the running back injuries, it's been all season. It's like, can McCarthy win the game in the air? Can he put the team on his back and just go down the field and score? Because this is such a run-happy team and a very effective run team, or just little tosses out of the backfield and everything like that. And we actually saw him spread the field, go downfield, throw the deep ball, and answered a lot of questions that I think not only Michigan fans had, but just college football fans altogether. And that was, to me, that was the biggest takeaway, aside from just the dominance of the game, because Michigan fans and college football fans have been waiting for this game. We kind of thought we would see it, and I guess against some of the lesser opponents, and really didn't get that. He did have.
You're relying on Blake Corum to carry the ball 30 times a game, and you're rushing for 400 yards a game all season long, and he didn't need to.
No.
But we said, and we kept saying it. I mean, get-togethers at my house. And we kept saying it all year long. Eventually, McCarthy's going to have to make plays.
Yep.
And Ohio State, I mean, you can't blame them. They were throwing 9 guys in the box. They were matching up man-to-man. And all they were doing, they were focusing on stopping the run. And that's all they did in the first half of that game. And McCarthy had to make plays. You have to make plays in that situation. And receivers have to make plays. And we saw it with Cornelius Johnson. He has 2 long touchdowns. And McCarthy hits him finally, deep balls where he hits his guy instead of overthrowing him. And in the biggest game, I mean, if you're gonna figure it out and get it done, to do it in the biggest game of the season, you did it, man. I mean, and so the one thing I will say about McCarthy is all season long he hasn't really had to do it, and he hasn't until last Saturday against Ohio State. He hadn't done it, but he hadn't done anything to fuck it up either.
No,
you go back last year with McNamara, he did the same thing. He didn't do anything to fuck it up. Like he didn't lose the game. McCarthy last year is the one that lost the big game, the Michigan State game. McCarthy fumbles the snap, just a bonehead fumble on a snap, and that's what lost them that game.
Yeah.
And this year, McCarthy starts all the games, with the exception of the first game, which I don't count that, but he starts all the games after that, and he doesn't do anything to fuck up any game. And he didn't need to do anything. Just keep handing the ball off. Well, in the game where he needed to do it, he did it. So.
And there were even a lot of Michigan fans wanting McNamara to start this game because of that.
Yeah.
And I kind of touched on it on our blog, on my blog, and I'm like, I really don't see how that would be any different.
There's no way. And McCarthy adds a whole different dynamic.
Oh, 100%.
To the game. Their running game is better because they have McCarthy, because he's a threat. So him being a threat to run the ball takes a man that has to stay on him. So it opens up the run game and it evens up the blocking schemes. So you don't have that with McNamara. Nobody's worried about him tucking it and running it anywhere. He might run for 5 or 6 yards and get out of bounds on a random play. Yeah. But McCarthy can take it 20 yards any play. And he did it in that game. There was plays in the Ohio State game where he drops back, nothing's there, and he takes it. I mean, how many times did we see him in the game take it for 8-10 yards for a first down? There one play he was dragging a fucking linebacker with him for 5 yards. It was like, that kid, he's only a sophomore. He's a true sophomore. And so the sky's the limit for him. He's only going to continue to get better. He's got a lot of improvement to make, especially with the throwing the ball. But the it factor of just having the guts, and having the skill set that he does have, he's going to be really, really good.
I agree. And I was shocked that with the success this team has had so far this year, that fans would be calling for this change in the biggest game.
Yeah, those are moronic.
I say, to me, that is, if we're talking like complete overreaction Monday, I mean, that is 100% overreaction Monday. And yeah, I don't get it. Give you an update on Thursday Night Football. We've got the Bills at the Pats. Bills are up 3-0, 8 minutes to go in the first quarter. But 2Ks, now that I think we've effectively broken down the game from last week, let's switch to the game to this week. I mean, we've kind of teased it a little bit. I told you my thoughts on the betting line. Did you happen to see what the current line is?
17.
Oh, so it's even more. Okay. I would actually take like 24 on this game. At least 20. And did I say 89% of the money's on Michigan?
Yeah.
That doesn't shock me.
Yeah.
Doesn't shock me. But yeah, I've especially, I mean, getting back to the whole conference kind of shitstorm that we have here, how viable is it, or how competitive can Purdue be if they don't even have their starting quarterback going into this game?
I'm just reading. They did announce that he is starting.
He is starting? Okay.
So he is starting, but his brother passed away earlier this week.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So T's and P's to him.
Yeah.
T's and P's.
Yep.
But, I mean, hell, give me a rematch of last week. Give me a rematch of last week, something that's a little bit more competitive. And since we did kind of, is there anything striking that jumps off the page at you about this game? No,
I mean, the only team that can beat Michigan in this game is Michigan.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
That's all that needs to be said about it. They're the better team all around, and they have way more to play for.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's all I can say. The only team that can beat them is them.
Well, I could not agree more. And it seems like now there are going to be some haters that are going to say, well, Harbaugh in the big game.
Yeah,
but I think
you can't say it about him here recently. I mean,
no.
Has he in the beginning of his Michigan tenure, in the first 5 years, 6 years of it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll listen to that argument all day, and I have nothing but can't do anything but agree with you. But now, that's what's so great about this is you can change that story, you can change that novel real quick, and that's beat Ohio State twice in a row, beat Michigan State this year, and all of a sudden it's quiet. And one
thing I do want to say is to the Michigan brass over there, kudos to you for sticking to your guns. Do not overreact. Trust the process, because now you're seeing what I think a lot of Michigan fans wanted to see 5-6 years ago, but they had the patience. They had,
Well, he finally, and I'm talking about Jim, he finally went back to what he knows.
Yeah.
He didn't have an identity there for years, and he was trying, all these other teams were going to the spread, and he was trying to go to the spread, and didn't know how to coach it, didn't have the staff to coach it. Defensively, in the beginning of the Don Brown era, everything was great. And then after a couple of years, people started to realize Don Brown didn't do anything but match up man-to-man, and there was nothing different with their defense. And Ohio State, Urban Meyer exploited that. I mean, we watched it how many times in a row where Urban Meyer just same play.
Crossing patterns.
Yes. Crossing patterns for 70-yard touchdowns over and over and over again. And finally, Harbaugh goes back to his identity. He hires the staff around him that has just been perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, when you're good, like they have been, you're going to start to lose some of that staff.
Sure.
But it started with Sherrone Moore as the offensive line coach, who has made such a difference in the last 2 years.
Oh,
and then They lose Josh Gaddis to the Miami offensive coordinating job, so then Moore slides into the offensive coordinator job. And, I mean, there really wasn't a hitch from year to year. It's not like this offense is really high-powered offense and where they throw it all over the place, but they're just they're very balanced. They do what they need to do. They stick to what they're good at. They don't get crazy. I thought some of the play calling in the Ohio State game was just great. Like like the trick play, the handoff to the running back, and then he jumps over the line and throws it. That it was perfect for that situation in the game. They're not getting crazy with it, but reading what's going on in the game and reacting and making the right calls. I think Moore has he's done an incredible job. And unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately for us Michigan fans, but good for Sherrone Moore. He's probably going to end up with a head coaching job after this. I mean, he's too sharp not to, and his track record of what he's done in Ann Arbor for the last 2-3 years, like, he deserves it. He deserves the next job. But that, to me, for Harbaugh, is just getting the right staff around him and going back to what he knows and what he's done throughout his entire career. He did it at Stanford. Mm-hmm. He proved that you can win college football games that way. And now he's proving to us again that you can still win college football games the old school way, and he's doing it on the biggest stage.
Speaking of Stanford, a big shout-out to Coach Shaw stepping away. I think that was kind of a shock to a lot of us, but, I mean, if you look at his record here the past few seasons, has not been up to par to his standards, but be interesting to see where he can go because, I mean, he obviously won with all of those academic standards, so let's see where he ends up, and I've always been a fan. I mean, that's a big Notre Dame rival, but I've always been a fan of him and what he's been doing. And speaking of that, 2Ks, the future of the Big Ten. Future of the Big Ten. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, Turbo, what the hell does that mean? Well, this was earlier today. This is from College Football Playoff, the official on Twitter. Official announcement, the College Football Playoff will expand to 12 teams beginning in the 2024-25 season. Excuse me. I think that a lot of us have been clamoring for that. I think a lot of us have been waiting for that. Now that it's come to fruition, I'm excited to see what this is going to bring. Now, you're going to get a lot of purists that are like, all right, well, if you go 12, you're definitely going to go 16. How far down the rabbit hole are we going? Are we going to talk about, here in 10 years, a 64 field team like we do in basketball? I don't think that's the case at all. I think 12 is a good number. I like that. Now, to get back to this, it is 12 teams, the top 4 teams, and before we even jump into that, the way the 12 teams are going to be established is 6 conference winners and then 6 at-large bids. The top 4 will get byes, and then the bottom 8, doing math on the spot, the bottom 8 will play at the better team's home field, and then the 4 next round games will be played kind of bowl games, if you will, or at neutral sites, and then the championship game will be played at I think the first one's in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So I'm really stoked about this. And it might be kind of biased because you and I kind of touched on this a little bit last week, and it's like, well, we'd been clamoring, and I was honestly shocked that it hasn't happened, that Notre Dame hasn't joined the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. But going to 12 teams, I think that opens the door for Notre Dame to go in more easily now. Mm-hmm. Do I still think they should join the Big Ten? Yes. I think you and I have spoken at great lengths about this, about how here in the near future there's going to be probably 3 conferences. And with the money the Big Ten's bringing in starting next year with all these TV deals, that's only going to get bigger the more teams they add. So that's neither here nor there with the future of the – well, it is kind of the future of the Big Ten.
Yeah. And the NBC sucks. Like,
can someone hire Jason Garrett, please? I'm tired of hearing his voice. He is the worst announcer ever. I mean,
he wasn't much better as a coach. I tell you that.
No. I mean, the Collinsworth kid, I don't mind. Tirico and Flutie were amazing on NBC. This is just garbage. I hate it.
Tirico and Flutie were pretty good. They were good. And, because even before them, it was awful then. I remember being younger and being like, God, watching Notre Dame games is hard because of listening to these fools. And now it's getting back to that again. It's like, get out of the NBC.
Yeah, I'm right there just to get rid of Jason Garrett. And for all you Cowboys fans, I'm sorry you actually had to go through that and listen to press conferences and shit about that, because I can't do it. I can't do it. But to further talk about the Big Ten, there is some action. There's one of these here. Nebraska gets a new coach, Matt Rule. For those of you who don't know who this gentleman is, he most recently was the coach of the Carolina Panthers, and before that was the coach of Baylor and I think Temple. And up until he got to Carolina, had a pretty stellar, pretty stellar coaching resume. And if you remember going back to the Baylor job, there was a span between RG3 and when Matt Rule took over that I want to say Art Briles was that the gentleman?
Yep.
Got in some big trouble down there, and the university, the program was kind of put on lockdown for a little while, and they bring in Matt Rule, and he brings them back to prominence, back to winning. So, in my opinion, I mean, this was kind of writing on the wall. I mean, there were folks even clamoring about this when he was still with Carolina and hadn't gotten fired yet. And once he did get the boot, now mind you, 2Ks. If memory serves me right, he's still getting paid $42 million or something ridiculous that from the Panthers to get fired. Yeah. Hey, sign me up.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Great deal for him.
And I think too, this is a good hire for Nebraska. I mean, this is a team. This is a program that, in my memory, it started with Bo Pelini. He was like the hot guy. Goes there, has mediocre results. I mean, pretty much was the last time they were relevant was under him. And then they go to Coach Freeze, again, just mediocre. And now they bring in Matt Rule, who, I mean, you could argue is the splashiest of hires. Yeah. And I like it. Yeah. I like it.
I think it's a good hire. I got to see it. First, because I think a lot of people still compare Nebraska to like late 90s.
With Tom Osborne.
Yes, and I think those days are over. And Matt Rule, his success that he has at Baylor, let's not forget where he's recruiting.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in Texas. He's in, probably the best state in the United States to recruit is Texas. And he's right there in the smack dab in the middle of that and recruiting out of there. Well, now you're trying to recruit kids to come up to the Midwest to Nebraska?
Yeah. To the middle of nowhere.
I mean, there's not a whole lot of things there to draw kids, especially 17, 18-year-old kids.
College World Series.
Play football there. And then you put on they just haven't been very good for a long time. So kids aren't really, ready to just run and jump. They're going to have some success, some early success to get it really going there. And I look at Scott Frost, like that hire he was the truth. I mean, he was the guy. He leaves Oregon as a coordinator there and goes to UCF. And UCF, they made their make-believe championship, and he won that. And I mean, then he ends up in Nebraska, and everybody's talking like this is the guy that's going to turn that program around. And that was a fucking dumpster fire. I mean, like they never could get that figured out there, and it was really, honestly, an embarrassment. What happened there? I mean, there was people that were picking Nebraska to win that side of the Big Ten this year, and then they come out in the first game of the year and lose to Northwestern.
Yeah, Northwestern, horrible this year.
Yeah, I mean that's one of 2 or 3 wins that Northwestern's got all year. So
might be the only one. Yeah. To be honest with you.
So I mean, that's how bad it was. And then we wake up this morning and read stories about the guy that took over the Nebraska job, and he's got assault charges or something like that against him. And I mean, there's not a whole lot good going on there in Nebraska right now. So it's going to be an uphill battle for Rule. Do I think he can do it? Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's got a track record. He's done it before. He did it with Baylor. coming off of Baylor was in deep shit when he took that
Yes.
job. So, but this is not going to be as easy as the Big 12 and recruiting in Texas. Now you're recruiting in Nebraska, which doesn't draw anybody, and you got to go through the gauntlet. Of the only thing you have going for you is you are on the right side to possibly get yourself into the championship if the Big Ten doesn't revamp their divisions.
Well, here's the one that I'm excited about. Luke Fickell to Wisconsin.
Yeah, that one I think is a very good hire.
Now Cincinnati moving to the Big 12 next year. So I was kind of taken aback at this.
I like that one because Luke Fickell is an Ohio State guy.
100%.
Then he goes to Cincinnati. And when you think about football in the Midwest, Ohio is probably your state. I mean, like Texas and Florida down in the South, and you have California on the West Coast. And in the Midwest, Ohio is that. I mean, Ohio, that's where majority of your really good players are coming from.
And look who the players we talked about earlier, the AJ Hawks and shit like that.
He has all the recruiting ties in that state, and then he's only moving over to Wisconsin, so we're not too far away. And there's more to draw with kids to Wisconsin than there is to draw kids to Nebraska. Wisconsin's been good for a long time, there's a lot of NFL players in the game today that came from Wisconsin. So I love that hire.
This Wisconsin team, the era, the aura, just fits what I think about when I think about Luke Fickell. I mean, he is an Ohio guy. He's tough as nails, wants to run the ball, and has had. I mean, hell, who before his hire there, when's the last time Cincinnati was relevant? Brian Kelly. I mean, that's how long it's been. And even when Coach Kelly was there, they never made noise like they did when Fickell was there. So I think, honestly, these two hires, yes, this one here, the Matt Rule one is going to take a little bit longer to come to fruition. But I think Fickell's going to have some very, very good success early and often just because of his style of football. I mean, hell, it is Big Ten football.
Yeah,
I mean, 100% through and through.
Yeah, I mean, he recruited and coached well enough to get a Cincinnati team to the playoff last year. Now, what he has in front of him at Wisconsin is way beyond what he had at Cincinnati. And that's no knock on Cincinnati, but Wisconsin, I mean, that's one of the premier schools of the Big Ten. I mean,
you just from a recruiting, resources, everything like that perspective, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. Now, there is one more hire that I did want to talk about here. Trent Dilfer going to UAB. And the only reason I pulled this one is I've always been a big Trent Dilfer fan. You know, Elite 11, shit like that when it comes to the coaching side of it. But it's who actually tweeted it. It's Kate at Kate Barstool. Says, let me know if you guys need a milfer for anything. Get it? Dilfer, milfer. Thought that was cool. But no, this goes right, aside from the Trent Dilfer tweet, but this kind of goes along the lines of what I was talking about, or what I was hinting at with the future of the Big Ten. You have these two coaches coming in, which I think is going to shake things up, and with the entrance of USC and hopefully UCLA, because there's something about UCLA being a state school that there's possibly going to be them not allowing them to leave the Pac-12. I think ultimately the money will make shit right, and we will see UCLA along with USC move over. Now, with those two moving over, you're going to have to realign something because you're going to have too many on the left, not as many on the right. But this, I'm not saying that this is going to help balance the power or is going to immediately balance the power, but I think it's a good step.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you're getting two brand new coaches for programs that were, I'm not going to say perennial powerhouses, but in the 90s and early 2000s, yes, we're there.
You have three Big Ten teams. I mean, when USC does go Big Ten, you have three Big Ten teams in the top five right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. And I think that's going to help kind of offset. Maybe offset isn't the right word, but help balance. Mm-hmm. Do I think Michigan and Ohio State are still the kind of the cream of the crop of the Big Ten? Yeah.
Well, sure. I mean, because USC and UCLA are new to the.
Yeah.
But they're from the get-go. They're right there at the top.
Yeah.
And I would go as far to say that I would put the Big Ten ahead of the SEC with that. Well, and Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC, but I'm still giving the nod to USC and UCLA.
Yep.
And just coaches alone,
I was just going to say that
Lincoln Riley, who leaves Oklahoma, and I'm sorry, you can say whatever you want about old boy out there at Oklahoma now, but he's a defensive coordinator for Clemson. That's where his success. He hasn't done anything as a head coach yet.
No,
they didn't do. Oklahoma didn't do this year what they were supposed to do under him as their head coach. So Lincoln Riley has the nod there, and then when it comes down to Chip Kelly at UCLA,
he's got to brought them back.
Chip Kelly's played in these big games. He's played in national championships before, and so.
Who scored the touchdown for Buffalo?
Diggs.
Yeah. We got a 10-7 ball game, ladies and gentlemen. But I honestly think, I mean, we've kind of said it in the past, and I think it rings true even more, even this year, is top to bottom, the Big Ten is more competitive than the SEC is top to bottom. Well, now, you bring in these other teams, granted, like you said, Oklahoma, Texas, go over to the SEC. UCLA, USC come into the Big Ten. I think that those two don't even cancel each other out. I think that further makes the Big Ten deeper. Mm-hmm. And I've talked to a lot of folks. They're like, well, the more teams you add, the more watered down it's going to be. And I said, well, if you add the wrong teams, absolutely. Yeah. But I have a feeling the Big Ten isn't. I mean, granted, the Rutgers thing was
top teams of the Big Ten right this year are better.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
You got Georgia, and Georgia is, in my opinion, they're the number one team in the nation. They deserve that. But everybody wants to get on Michigan's track record going into this season. Strength of schedule, what they've played. Ohio State, they want to argue the same thing with them. Georgia's isn't much better. I mean, yeah, they beat Tennessee when Hooker was still there, but is Tennessee as good as what we thought? We gave Tennessee so much love when they win the Alabama game. Well, Alabama's not as good as what people think. And so is that, Georgia played Missouri all the way down to the final 2 minutes of that game. And for a little bit there, I think a lot of people thought Missouri was going to win that game.
Yeah.
And so there's that gap has closed too. And let's not forget about Penn State. Penn State's a damn good football team. Penn State is a legitimate team that we should be talking about in the top 7 or 8 at least, in my opinion. Their 2 losses this year are to Michigan and Ohio State. Both of them on the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
we've talked about for years. Happy Valley and a whiteout is got to be just electric.
Yeah. I mean, if tomorrow the game, I would love to see a bowl game of Penn State against Alabama or Penn State against LSU. I would love to see that game because I'm telling you, that game would be a close game, and I would not be shocked to see Penn State win that. No, that's how good of a football team I think they are.
Yeah, I 100% agree. But yeah, to me, the future of the Big Ten, even if they don't add any more teams, which I think is highly unlikely, I think this is it is. And then, I mean, we're just talking football here, 2Ks. If you talk about basketball, the Big Ten, I think for the last handful of years, has sent the most teams to the tournament. Granted, tournament success hasn't been what a lot of Big Ten fans would have hoped, but still, I mean, and we've said it many times over again, the officiating during the Big Ten regular season is way different than the officiating in the big tournament, which I think is ridiculous. But
and you're taking two of the top 3 teams out of the pack are going to the Big Ten now.
Yeah,
I mean, I would say Arizona probably they might be number 1 out of those 3 teams, but UCLA, I mean, they with. What the hell's his name? The little short guy, Cronin or whatever is the head coach there. And USC coming off of their good years with having the Mobley brothers that kind of brought them back into reality. The Big Ten, I mean, we could sit here and talk all night about football, but basketball, that's the beginning of the season. We really haven't got deep into that. But that change for the basketball just in the conference alone got really interesting, too, with adding those 2 teams to it, which already was way beyond any. The Big Ten and the SEC, you can have an argument with football there. You can't have an argument, in my opinion, with any other conference than what the Big Ten is college basketball.
The only other argument you could even try to make is the ACC, just because they have Duke, Duke and Kentucky,
because of their that's all off of their track record.
Yeah.
No, Coach K isn't there anymore.
Nope.
Roy Williams ain't there anymore. So that's.
We just saw North Carolina lose 3 straight games, drop from the number 1 to they were 18 going into last night and lost again, possibly dropping them out of the top 25. Do I think they'll get back in there? Absolutely. That team it's basically the same team as last year. So, but yeah, that's a whole nother discussion for another show. But
going back to what we first started talking about with this going to 12-team playoff. What I look forward to the most with that is like what you said in the beginning with with the 8 teams. After you get the top 4, we get the bye, the 8 teams, and you have to go to the better team's home field. So where we're looking at it right now, somebody's got to go to Columbus, and it's going to probably be one of those teams down south. It could be your LSU. It could be it probably wouldn't be LSU just by ranking right now, but it could be one of those SEC schools that has to come up to Columbus and play in the wind and the snow. Or it could be one of those teams in the future that has to come up into South Bend and has to play a snow game, or they have to come up to Ann Arbor and they have to play a snow game. That to me is what I look forward to the most, because what we've seen, we haven't ever seen it. We've never seen Alabama have to come up and play in the cold, and we've never seen Georgia have to come play in the cold. And that's the stuff that's the football that I want to see, where it's not in a controlled environment, indoors, playing somewhere, basically a home game for Georgia or a fucking home game for Alabama. They have to go travel now. They actually have to get on a plane, and they have to travel and come up to where they get on the plane and it's 60, 70 degrees, and they got to get off and it's fucking 10 and it's snowing, and they have to go play on that shit. That's what I look forward to seeing in the future with the 12-team playoff.
Now, just to kind of piggyback on your point here, if the season was done today, conference championships are done, top 4 teams would be Georgia, Michigan, TCU, USC. And going by the bracket right now, Utah would travel to Ohio State, LSU to Alabama. I have a feeling Alabama would they would take care of business. Clemson would go to Tennessee. And Washington would go to Penn State.
So really nothing cool
would
happen in that one. Yeah,
not
but
yet.
We're before the conference championships haven't started yet.
Yeah.
But I would love to see one of those, like Alabama have to go to Penn State or have to go to Ohio. Oh man, Alabama have to go to Columbus to play Ohio State, or vice versa. They have to go to Ann Arbor to play Michigan. I want to see that. I want to see. Get out of that controlled environment, get out of the beautiful weather, and go get off the fucking plane and it's 10 and it's blowing snow. I mean, look at the NFL. How many people have dreaded in the last 15 years, have absolutely dreaded having to make that trip to Green Bay, Wisconsin to play against Aaron Rodgers in a fucking snow game in the playoffs. And you get off that jet, and all of a sudden shit gets real. It's 10 degrees, and you got Aaron Rodgers over there with a little fucking turtleneck on and his playoff beard, and doesn't even look like it's affecting him. Snow is blowing. He fucking plays better. He just throws a better ball when it's that cold.
Somehow.
And that's the kind of, I want to see that at the college level. We see it. We get to see it all the time in the NFL. I want to see it at the college level. You go back to early 2000s, mid 2000s when the Bears were really good. Having to go into Chicago in the playoffs and play against the Bears, who that defense hit harder than anybody.
Oh yeah.
And all of a sudden you see these offenses that are putting up 30, 40 points in games, and then all of a sudden they have to beat the Bears in a game in the teens.
Well, it's kind of like the Buffalo Bills right now.
That's the kind of football that I want to see. Yes, that's the kind of football that I want to see, where you have to get out of that controlled environment. Even when when the Bears were really good and they were playing against like the Colts. Well, Peyton Manning got to play inside. Oh, yeah, they're in the Midwest, but they're indoors. It's a whole different thing when you got to go over to Chicago and play them in the Chicago winds up against Lake Michigan when it's 10 degrees out and the wind's blowing 30 mile an hour. That's the football that I want to see in the playoffs and at the college level. I'm tired of it always revolving around the SEC and where they're at, or the state of Texas, and everything revolves around Jerry World and Cowboy Stadium and New Orleans and Atlanta, and that's where they always play everything. I'm tired of that shit.
I agree. And like I said, this between the 12 teams in the playoffs, the Big Ten expanding, I mean, like I said, I'm not even a Big Ten guy, not yet. Wink, wink. But I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I mean, granted, 90% of my friends are Michigan fans, or probably at 95% because there's a small chunk that is Michigan State fans. Sorry about it.
Wouldn't you love to see like those fucking Alabama hillbillies have to come up to like South Bend? They don't even own a pair of snow pants, and there would be like no crimson in the stands at all for a game like that because hey, they don't own snow pants. They don't even they have no idea what kind of weather they'd be getting themselves into. You go look at the Notre Dame Boston College game a couple weeks ago where the weather was cold in the beginning, but the weather was beautiful. The sun was out, and then all of a sudden the second half just starts.
It's funny you mention that. It's funny you mention that.
Like, I would love to see those Alabama hillbillies have to come up into the Midwest for something like that.
What I honestly think would happen is if that did happen, what you would see is a lot of camouflage and blaze orange because they'd be going to Dick's to buy stuff, and I think it'd be absolutely hilarious. Where the hell is that picture? Getting closer. Oh, hell with it. But yeah, it was literally the start of the third quarter, I believe, and there was the top third of the picture, and this was it put the time on everything. Sunny. Literally game time, 4 minutes later, snowing. Game time, 5 minutes later, and there's like a foot of snow on the field. Yeah, you're 100% right. 100% right. And as a football fan, I love it too. I love it too. And I would honestly like to sit down and have a conversation for a college football fan that is not looking forward to this. Because everyone I've talked to, they're stoked about it. And so if you're not, drop it in the comments. Let me know. I would really like to get your insight and kind of see where your thoughts are on this. And maybe we're overlooking something. Maybe we haven't thought of kind of a con to this that someone else could bring light to. Well, 2Ks, we've hit our hour mark, brother. How's it feel to be back?
Feels good. Feels good. One thing I just was reading it a few minutes ago, and I wanted to bring it up one time. And it was the one moment this year for me as a Michigan football fan that pissed me off. And it was when I actually went to a game. Mm-hmm. And it was for the Michigan and UConn game early in the season. And McCarthy and Michigan, they ran all over UConn in the first quarter. In the second quarter, kind of leading up to halftime, the game was like 21-0, 28-0, something like that. And they started, and Harbaugh mixed in Cade McNamara. Mm-hmm. And McNamara made a few bad throws, and the crowd instantly started to boo this kid. And it was like, man, this kid finally got us over the hump last year.
Yeah.
Did he play anything spectacular and do things spectacular? No. But he was consistent. He didn't turn the ball over. He just won football games. And he got us over the hump and made it like, to I think for a lot of us Michigan fans, kind of a reality like, holy shit, we can beat those guys. Because for me, I'm 31 years old, and the times that I've been able to see Michigan beat Ohio State in my lifetime haven't been very many fucking times.
Well, this is the first time in, 20 years they went
to Columbus
in the Horseshoe?
Yes. So I haven't seen it very many times, and I'm 31. Mm-hmm. So he finally got, he did it. He won. Yes, it was at home, but he was the quarterback for that entire game, and he won that football game. And a few months later, he makes some bad throws. I mean, look, we all knew McCarthy. We watched it in the Hawaii game, game 2 of the year. Mm-hmm. McCarthy comes out. Yes, it was Hawaii, but he just blows the doors off of them with passing plays. And we all knew McCarthy's the guy. Cade McNamara stood on the sideline, and he knew that McCarthy was the guy. And we're gonna fucking boo that kid though.
Yeah.
When we're up 28-0, I was so mad as a Michigan fan. Now I bring this up because I just read it that McNamara transferred today to Iowa.
Oh, he's going to Iowa. Okay.
And he entered the portal earlier in the week, and then he committed that he's going to Iowa now. I tell you what, Iowa can play some defense over there. And Cade McNamara, That quarterback situation in Iowa has been really, really, really bad.
I think you and I could play there.
Really, really fucking bad. And Cade McNamara is better than anything that Iowa's had at quarterback in years.
That's C.J. Beathard?
Yeah. Is it anything spectacular that you're going to get out of McNamara? No, but you're going to get a kid that knows how to win, is a proven leader. He was a captain on this team.
Yeah.
Proven leader. Beat Ohio State. I hope nothing but the best for him.
Yeah.
The only game I ever want Cade McNamara to lose at Iowa is against Michigan. Other than that, I will root for him in every single game. Like, I was so mad in that situation. Like, how can you watch a kid and cheer for him as they beat Ohio State, and then a few months later you forget all about that and you boo him over some bad throws in a meaningless game where you're already up by 28 points, and he would be the first one to tell you that McCarthy was better than him.
Yeah. Well, it's the
that pissed me off, and I hope he goes on and wins a lot of games with Iowa.
Me too, and that's been the missing piece at Iowa for a long time. I mean, I'm probably not going out on a limb and saying that their defense has scored more points than their offense this year, or at least their defense and special teams combined. But since we're on the wrap-up section here, 2Ks, I did not want to get out of this before we did this one. For those of you that don't know, Miguel Cabrera came out and said not today is his last year, but this coming season is going to be his last season. He is hanging it up. This tweet's from Evan Woodbury, at Evan Woodbury. I always do whatever the manager wants me to do, Cabrera said. So I don't worry if I'm going to play every day or not. If they give me a chance, I play. If not, I'm going to support the team. I'm going to be a good teammate. Well, Miggy, good on you, brother.
Yeah.
You've had one hell of a career. You do not owe us anything. I mean, you've graced Detroit as arguably this generation's greatest, definitely the greatest right-handed hitter, if not one of the greatest hitters of all time. You've done it, aside from the one incident, you've done it with nothing but style and grace. Everyone that's ever played with you has enjoyed your company, has enjoyed your camaraderie. And one question I did want to ask you, 2Ks, is, and it came out, I mean, Twitter was just flooded with this. I'm pretty sure it was trending right after Cabrera said this. Is this more fuel for the fire to go and re-sign JV? One last hoorah.
Man, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a team that's not in the situation where they need to be putting money up like that. You know, and the thing with the Verlander deal is it's not going to be. Verlander doesn't want a 1-year deal. No. He doesn't want a 2-year deal. Like he wants to, like a 4-year deal where he can end his career.
And he just won the Cy Young.
And so
probably it's statistically probably his best season ever.
Yeah.
World Series ring. And he again, one of those guys that bet on himself, cashed in that bet, or is going to cash in. I think he'll probably end up with someone like the Dodgers, or because here's the deal. Would it be cool? Yes. But I think that if you're a true diehard Tigers fan, you're in now. If they were in win now mode,
absolutely.
by all means,
absolutely,
by all means. But you're not in that win now mode.
If you could have got him to the 2-year deal with the opt out that the Astros got him with at the beginning of last year, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
But now with where he's at and what he's talking about and what he wants and how he wants to basically this to be his last major contract. I just don't think the Tigers are in that position where that's a very intelligent move. Now, look, I could wake up tomorrow morning and see that the Tigers did it, and it would not make me upset one bit.
No.
But it's one of those moves that just wouldn't make much sense to me. Like, great, we got Verlander back. Great, it's a cool story. We're going to talk about this with him and Cabrera down the stretch here. But this is still a team that's a lot of guys away from being something that is where we're competing for a playoff spot. We're competing for anything. So to me, it just doesn't make much sense.
Competing with 500.
Yeah, it just doesn't make much sense. I do want to see Verlander get out of Houston because I fucking hate Houston.
Yes.
Because of the whole scandal.
Yeah.
I hate that. They're right up there with the Yankees and Dodgers now with me. So I'm basically to the point where if Verlander ends up anywhere other than those 3 teams,
hey JV,
I'm happy.
Come on over to Boston.
I'd be fine with that.
And I mean, further baseball news. I mean, we've seen one, I guess you could say, top-tier free agent sign. Jose Abreu, again, to the Astros. Kind of shocked with that.
Yeah, that's just as far as for the White Sox, look, Abreu's been nothing but great for the White Sox. I mean, he has been a stud for years, but the power numbers just aren't there anymore. Like
I didn't realize he was 36 years old.
Yeah.
Did not realize that.
Aging. Well, he didn't get over here and just start playing until he was already in his upper 20s. But the power numbers just aren't there anymore. And if the power numbers are down when you play in Chicago, I can't see the power numbers getting any better playing in Houston. I mean, they're both hitter ballparks, but Chicago's way better. Well, and that's what Abreu's. He's in that lineup in Chicago to hit for power, and when he stops doing that, there's too many young kids that Chicago has coming up that he's holding back now. So I think it's a good move for the White Sox to move on from him. Oh,
I 110% agree with that. I'm more confused on the other side.
Yeah,
I mean,
what's Houston doing?
You're basically replacing Yuli Gurriel, who won the batting title not this year but last year. Granted, someone on Twitter corrected me and said that Abreu still hit over 300 this year.
Yeah, he still hits for average. He's a good hitter. Yeah, absolutely.
But Gurriel's not a power guy.
No.
So
I would still give the nod now, though, in their careers that Gurriel is the better power hitter than Abreu now. Yeah, better defensively.
Yeah.
So Abreu's, you're looking at, you signed a DH for you. Mm-hmm. But that DH role has played a lot. Jordan's taken that role a lot because Jordan's not a very good outfielder. But so now you're going to force, because you can't take Jordan's bat out.
No.
So now you're going to force him to play outfield. I don't know. It's one of those moves that just doesn't.
And I'm not sure if Gurriel's still under contract, if he's a free agent or not. I don't know. I'm just saying that it seems like you're replacing a similar skill set with a similar skill set. So the move didn't. I mean, good on Abreu. I mean, you get paid. There was clamorings that the Red Sox were interested. Price tag was a little high. I agree, But usually this time of year, I mean, we've gotten at least one big name. I mean, it pains me to say that Xander Bogaerts is probably going to be a Padre. I don't know where they're going to put him, but if you're a Padres,
you'll figure that place out. To me, if he goes to San Diego, he's their shortstop.
He's got to be.
Tatis is an outfielder now. The rookie Kim, he had a good season last year, but he's no Xander Bogaerts.
No. And like I said, that one pains me. Still, I mean, he said that he wants to play shortstop. He's not moving anywhere at this stage of his career. He doesn't want to play third. He doesn't want to play second. Good on you. And we've seen a lot of shortstops get a lot of money, and the Red Sox are not that pay happy as they once were. Rafael Devers still hasn't been extended. We're still waiting to see who wins the Aaron Judge sweepstakes, which I saw a tweet today that it's pretty much 50-50 between the Giants and the Yankees, which if I had to bet, I'm leaning towards San Francisco.
Sure. Yeah, that's right there too.
I mean, when you're booing your stud in the playoffs, the guy that is the reason you're in the playoffs, when you're booing him, I'm out of here. I mean, I saw a clip of it's not starting 9 anymore, but it was Carabas and Dallas were on a show, and I guess the agent for Jacob deGrom, the Rays had reached out to him, and they were kind of giving him shit and like, why wouldn't my client want to go to the Rays? I mean, for one, the Rays aren't going to pay him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just not their forte. DeGrom would fit in excellent everywhere, hands down. But they were more joking about, all right, well, DeGrom would make more than the entire team combined. So that really doesn't make sense. But yeah, hopefully here sooner rather than later, we do have some baseball news to
It's coming. It's coming soon.
Oh yeah. And I mean, 2Ks. To be honest with you, there was a lot of news that broke today. Mm-hmm. So maybe going on Thursdays is even better. We can talk about the news fresher, and we can watch Thursday Night Football with y'all for at least another handful of weeks. Well, 2Ks, it's good to have you back, brother. Good to have you back. Is there anything else you want to tell or say to the fine folks?
No.
Besides, go blue.
Go blue.
Go blue. And I'm a Michigan fan this weekend as well. So, like I said, I'm going to hammer that spread. I mean, I did. It's 16.5, and now it's you said it's what, 17? Might make another one.
Yeah.
Might make another one. Because I honestly think I think it's going to be reminiscent of last year, and it's not even going to be close. Not even going to be close. But then again, I'm the one that mistakenly took the spread when it was plus 52 in a hit. So, all right, 2K crew, we'll get you out of here on this. Everyone have a great week, a great weekend. Enjoy the games this weekend, and we will see you next week. And as always, Jim Rome, we're coming for you.